Hello my sweet friends, happy Wednesday to all of you. If you're new around here, welcome. I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button to join our crafty little family because we really do have the best peeps. For today's projects, I am so excited to share with you that I have the dollar download Patriotic Printable all ready, and so I have been having so much fun creating with it. I have a couple of examples here that I'll share with you more at the end, but for today's video we have a tutorial on this fun fold card that I created with that printable. And so for each of these projects I used only one printing, so you can see that it goes a long way and you can do a lot of different types of projects. These are just cards for today, but you can use them for tags or for labels or in your scrapbooking projects. This is the printable and there's quite a few elements here. I've got a larger background piece, and so I used a more neutral palette on that so that you don't burn through quite so much of your ink. There is a layering pattern here, that beautiful gingham, and the tag has the so sweet little patriotic girl on a tag background. So this will be your focal image. I have a layering background and I have this with the kind of postal stripe around the outside, a sentiment, a large label, and some tickets. So there's a lot of different elements to work with, and it was a lot of fun to create these projects. So if you are interested in that printable, you can check out the top of the description. I'll link that there. And then for today's projects, we're going to start the tutorial for this card. So stick with me and we'll make it together. So this is a fairly easy and basic fun fold card, and I'm going to start with 65-pound weight cardstock just because there is a lot of folds and I don't want to create a lot of bulk so that it doesn't sit properly. And this is going to be 6.5 inch high by 10 inches wide. I scored it at 2.5 and then 5. So this is just your basic G-fold card, and so when you fold it over, this portion will cover half of the bottom. So now we can begin to layer on those elements from the printable, and I have my background. This is going right here, and this will be covered partially. So this is going to be the biggest piece, and it's just going to go on the bottom. For the printable I used today, I only wanted to print one in the size that it was intended so that you could see how far you could get with a printable. And so I do not have pattern paper for the inside. I'm just going to finish that off with the cardstock. This looks a little more finished and also gives it a little bit of extra stability. Okay, the last piece that goes in is that layering pattern, and I am using the plaid on the outside because I think that it will show up better with part of it being covered, and that's what we have to do to get all of our tags and all the details put on. Okay, so these measurements are really simple, and like I said, this is a 5 by 6.5 inch card, so that's a very standard size. The cardstock for the larger piece is 6 3/8 by 4 7/8, and the pattern paper is 6 1/4 by 4 3/4. Now we're moving into the smaller portions. So the cardstock layer for both of these pieces is 6 3/8 by 2 3/8. And then the pattern paper that we see on the front is going to be 6 1/4 by 2 1/4. And when you close it, you can see how we're going to get that layering of patterns. So the next thing I want to add, so the next thing I'm going to bring in is a doily. Of course, I really love how they look, but this is helping me to extend the amount of space I have to decorate the front of this card. And knowing that only a portion of it is going to be adhered to this, so the whole thing is going to move together, I have put my adhesive on a small portion of the back. That way I don't accidentally seal it up. And just for good measure, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue because I want this to be very sturdy and well adhered. So let's flip this over, and it just barely fits on this card. So I've got that doily coverage all the way across. So what I want to show you now is that I put my double-sided adhesive only on the center section where it's solid cardstock, because I don't want to have anything coming through those intricate die cut layers and getting on to our large background. So I put a fairly generous amount of double-sided tape here, and once again I'm going to reinforce that with a little bit of hot glue. You could use Tombow as well, but since I have this handy, this is going to be centered with the longer portion so that it will be an obviously nice layer when I add my tag. So see how this will travel now when I open it, and then we don't have anything coming through the back. So the next thing I want to do is bring in some additional layering pieces. Remember, our printable has that sentiment, and I left the background on it a little long so that you could choose which side you wanted to have a dovetail on if you're using the banner shaped die cuts, and so that way you would have enough room. I cut quite a bit of the side off so that I would have enough room to fit this along the top and underneath my doily. Just want to make sure to get that on straight. So that is a nice sentiment on the top. And the next thing I'm going to do is bring in that label. There is room for this right along the top, and we're going to cover part of it with the tag, but this is going to be a very nice noticeable layering element. And for my last piece, of course, is that super cute Patriotic Tag. I did trim the excess from the outside just to shrink it down a little bit and be a better fit for my card. I put quite a lot of stickles on here to accent the details, and then I punched the top, put an eyelet in and a little bit of twine, and then I also popped this up on a spacer so that we can build a little bit of dimension in. So that's going to go about right in the middle. So next I'm gonna bring in my flower arrangement, and this one has a very different shape than what I typically make. Instead of making it on a curve, this is pretty much in a line so that it will fit here along the side. And I have the new flower that I got from Spellbinders, the Be Bold Bloom, as a focal flower. That was the largest one. And then I balanced that with some red poinsettias, and those are from Spellbinders as well. So this just kind of follows along with our patriotic theme. I did put in some die cut stars just for a little bit of sparkle. I used the tickets to fill in this flower arrangement and make it a little bit more beefy and substantial. I've added my netting and my twine, of course. There's a little bit of green foliage, but not a lot. And then I finished it off with some die cut leaves in that same navy cardstock. And so this helps to fill in all of that space. So I'm going to position that here so that I can keep all of my fragile bits on the inside edge. I think that really fills in this smaller space nicely. So now I've got a couple of additional finishing details. There's a couple of little silver stars here, and I want them to hang just below that label. And so I'm going to add those with hot glue and press those strings in there. I definitely want to cut off the excess before the knot because my next element will be fairly flat. I just die cut an additional little silver star, and I'll use that to cover the cut ends of that string. And now that is covered, I can still add a vintage button on the top just for little added extra detail. So of course, if you know me, the last finishing detail I want to add are a couple of sequins, and I think they would look nice if I put a couple on the top and also on the bottom, and that just gives me a little bit of extra balance. And so I'm going to adhere those with my Tombow. So that's going to be all for our fancy fold card using that $1 download Patriotic Printable. I think this is really fun and festive, and I had a lot of fun creating it. Of course, when I have those printables done, I like to create a few additional examples just so that you can see that it's a very versatile printable. So this one is a 6x6, and I was able to cover that large amount of background simply by adhering those paper layers next to each other, and that covers all of the back. For my label, I did cut it in half and I put it into the background so that it would look like one larger portion that just ran underneath. And then instead of using the dovetail die for my sentiment, I just clipped it and then adhered it so that it was coming out from under that tag. This also has the tickets to help fill in the arrangement. I've balanced it with some charms and some sequins. Okay, for my last example, I have a 5x6.5 inch card, and because I had a little bit of extra room for my layering patterns, I just used that plaid with a die cut as a banner shape, and that is a more of a layering element. I've still got all of my die cuts there layered up. This time I picked a larger glittery star, still have the button, and then I used a little staple from my tiny attacher for my sentiment, and this is basically the same kind of flower arrangement. So we can see that this printable does work for many different types of projects. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you're interested in that printable, I will link it at the top of the description so it's easy to find in the $1 download section of my shop. If you enjoyed this project, make sure to let me know in the comments. And if you're not already, I would love for you to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up notification. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.